Okay. Can you start a podcast with me, please? I need something to do.
Pastrnak sent it out in front of Malkin to save. They score! Elias Lindholm looks to the heavens.
Here's a chance. Pastrnak right in, and goal, he scores. Oh my, what a move by the rookie.
2-on-1. Pastrnak moving in with Marchand. Get it to it. Score!
The zone. Hoyle dances in. Backhand score!
Lindholm right wing corner. Pastrnak is there. He scores! David Pastrnak wins it for Boston.
Welcome in, everyone, to a very special live edition of Bruins Tape to Tape. I'm going to be your host on this beautiful, because it's sunny where I live, trade deadline day. So welcome in. Hello, Maria. You look stressed. I know we need to be pouring one out for a couple of our guys.
Little stressed.
It's always a stressful day. It's exciting and stressful. So how are you holding up with today? We'll get into the details in a minute.
Well, I'd sound like a hypocrite if I didn't say that Don is doing just what I asked him to do, which is identifying those players that you're going to move forward with, who will be the future and the core of your team, and parting ways with players who have seemingly maybe been passengers to a big degree this season. And while we like players and, you know, we appreciate what they do both on and off the ice, it's still hard to see, you know, genuinely good people, right, get moved around. But this is a business results industry, and the results have not been good for the Bruins this season. So I'm a little sad to see Charlie Coyle go, because I've enjoyed watching him play for the Bruins. I've also met him on more than one occasion and spoken to him, and he is one of the most genuinely nice people that you ever want to meet. So, but I wish him well, because he's going someplace where he's got a chance to win a cup.
Yeah, for sure. So for those of you just joining us, if you're watching us on YouTube, we have our Thursday and Friday. Today is Friday. Trades that have happened around the league. We'll have that scrolling throughout. And then, of course, our big Boston trades. And then we're going to invite some of our friends on. Friends of the pod will be joining us in a little bit to talk about things that are happening, because the Bruins don't exist in a vacuum, and they are still statistically within earshot of the playoffs. We are not dead in the water yet. And we know from just in the past
the phone is blowing up, because
everything is.
There's still a chance that Brad Marchand is going to be traded to the Florida Panthers, folks.
We are not done. These are rumors. Done. Yep.
So sorry to interrupt, only because now I'm like, you know, this is new territory for us as diehard Bruins fans.
It is. So what we'll do is we'll talk with some friends of the pod who are also fans of rivals within our division, because the Boston Bruins actually do have a lot of divisional games remaining. So what the Bruins have done and what those other divisional teams have done could really dictate how this season ends for Boston. So we will start first off. The headline news as of 3:05 p.m. Eastern time at this moment. Currently, the trades that have gone through all pretty much have happened within the past couple of days. We've had Trent Frederick, which was an expected trade, going to Edmonton along with Max Jones. We talked about that in our most recent podcast. The Bruins have received in exchange for those two players a prospect player heading to Providence in Max Wanner and a 2025 second round pick, which we also discussed was the first time that Boston has had a first and second round pick in the same draft since 2017. And they also received a fourth round 2026 pick. Late last night, I didn't see this come in because after the disastrous, just absolutely bad luck end to that Carolina game, I went straight to bed because I was really pissed off at the hockey gods to have Nikita Zadorov's stick break as he sent the pass that ultimately went immediately to Jacob Slavin. That was just, you could not write.
Just so apropos.
Yes.
How this shit season, it's been just one big shit sandwich for the Bruins this season.
Pretty much. So I went straight to bed after that. And I believe at around 11 o'clock at night, the news broke that Justin Brazeau, another trade piece.
Frank Saravelli is reporting that the Florida Panthers have agreed to a trade to acquire Brad Marchand. They're in the trade call queue. I mean, I want to know what the return is. It better be a goddamn good one, Dawn. It better
Let's wait and see. Let's wait and see. Let's finish talking about the trades that we know have happened before we all grab our pitchforks and our torches. And
there's no pitchforking that we can do, right? We'll get to that. I'm derailing my co-host who has spent a significant amount of time today, all right, preparing us for this show, and I really appreciate you doing the heavy lift today on this, my friend.
Thanks, Maria. So as expected, Justin Brazeau, also a trade piece. He did end up going to Minnesota for Jacob Lauko, which I don't know about you, Maria. I'm pleased to see him back. He was a speedy forward player. It looks like he, at least now, his credentials show he can play at wing and center, which I don't remember that.
He showed some upside. He did show potential. Right. Yeah. And maybe this bit of time away with another team, right, has helped him progress and develop even more so that he can be more of a contributor to the Boston Bruins moving forward.
Yep, exactly. So I'm excited to see him back. And of course, the other big news from today, Charlie Coyle. This is going to be the last time you see it facing in this direction, guys.
I know.
I'm sad, but I'm not devastated. I knew that had to happen. I knew it was likely to happen. It was going to be him or it was going to be Brandon Carlo. And the trade in return, obviously, Casey Middlestat, he's one that a lot of folks have pointed out is a trade deal that I believe it was trade or draft. I didn't actually do all of my homework, but he ended up in Colorado and is one who seems to not have met the full potential there. So here's hoping that a change of scenery is something that will do him good, and we'll likely be seeing him very quickly, along with Will Zellers, a prospect, and another second round pick. So this year, it would seem that the Boston Bruins are going to be very aggressive in the draft. So that being said, we've got all kinds of friends of the pod ready to hop on and chat. So we will welcome in our friend Post Hugger Steve, and we've got Mary Beth coming in from Boston. Hello, friends.
Hello.
Hey there.
Welcome in. Did you just see that the Marchand trade is now confirmed to Florida?
Is it really?
They have the TBD beside it, but the trade's going through. And I remember asking Caroline about a month ago, about Marchand being traded. I won't repeat exactly what she said about that trade. But
by all means, I'll repeat it right now.
She's not in love right now with this.
This, if truly 100% fully confirmed, in my mind, is tantamount to one of the absolute worst things that any general manager has ever done for any team in the history of the NHL, right up there next to trading Bobby Orr for no damn good reason to the Chicago Blackhawks for his final seasons.
That was a little different because his agent lied to him. His agent lied to him.
Oh, Brandon Carlo was just traded too.
I knew that was coming.
Yeah.
I knew Brandon Carlo was coming. I
Leafs.
literally said, I was expecting Charlie Coyle and Brandon Carlo.
We can call this now a fire sale, honestly, right?
Well, yeah. Here's my 2 cents on, because I've been tracking, just like you guys, right? Being a Habs fan, Montreal stayed put, and I'm happy.
Yes.
Just write it out right now because Tampa Bay is looking stacked. Florida now is ridiculous.
Yep.
Toronto's dead in the water now, in my opinion. Carlo's not going to help them on out. That's not enough. And the other team that, I'm scratching my head at right now is the just be happy you're not a Hurricanes fan because you just traded a good speedy forward that was scoring goals for a big forward that you, but again, okay, so let's just talk about the brass tacks of this.
They gave away Natchez. So here, I want to share real quick. Sorry
about that.
No. Folks, I'm a little distracted by all this. The phone here is just like,
Yeah, I thought I was feeling pretty good about actually where we were. We got a couple of nice picks. We traded a few people that needed to go, and now all of a sudden, 3:00, 3:05.
We knew this was coming.
Bang, bang, bang. Yeah.
Yep. So there's about 10,000 things bouncing around in my mind with all of this news. But let's just talk really quickly. Remaining games, we've got, like I said, a ton of divisional games that are coming up. Interestingly, and I think not surprisingly, and Steve, let me know if you think I'm wrong here. I'm not surprised that Montreal didn't do a gosh darn thing because they've got a really good thing going right now, regardless of how they finish. If they don't finish actually in the playoff structure at the end of the season, I think they probably can check this season off as a win and something really positive to build on. And that to me is something that is enough that you don't necessarily rock the boat with much in the way of any action, both now, today, and then we'll see how obviously the rest of the season plays out for them come July 1st, how much they're going to make changes. What is your take? Because that's a big one for us that we still have a remaining game and they did nothing, basically.
Well, okay, so I'm not shocked because, again, essentially our GM, we've got Hughes that's there, but we've got, Gordon, who built the Boston Bruins, and now I've watched Sweeney destroy them. He's a genius. He did it to the New York Rangers too, right? So he has his path. He's not going to overpay. And this year's goal was to improve on last year. This is still a rebuild year. So I'm not shocked and I'm fine. When we finally had our very first healthy lineup in November, the very first time Martin St. Louis had a full lineup, we started to win hockey games. We lost the one player, Heineman, getting hit by a car in Utah, which is amazing.
Yeah,
of all the injuries, right? But we went downhill after that happened. He's back in the lineup and we're on another winning streak we just lost Edmonton last night 3-2 in overtime, which hell, that was great. So I'm happy. I'm fine. We've got good young talent coming in. We've got a good AHL team. We've got draft picks. So we're set. The problem is, and I'll allude to Boston here, is chasing it, and not doing something sooner. You can't always deplete your farm system and then your draft picks and expect to be competitive. So that's why I wasn't shocked that Marchand was being traded, because he's getting up there in age, and trust me, I'm in Montreal. I've seen enough bad trades happen on my end where I've watched good players get dealt. Patrick Waugh, will still haunt me forever.
Oh yeah.
So however Montreal finishes, if we happen to just to scooch into the playoffs, hey, wonderful. If we miss it, I don't care, because in all honesty, unless we have a miracle run, we're not doing much, because we're going up against powerhouses. Like the two Florida teams are going to beat the hell out of everybody right now. I don't care. They're going to run all over everybody. So watch out. My only thing with that, though, here's my prediction, because I said this a few years ago when the Panthers made the Cup Finals, was that the Eastern Conference was so tough that they were dead by the time they got to those finals, right? So the Eastern Conference is really scary right now. It's scary. There's so much depth and so much talent. So am I surprised at Boston doing what they just did? No, because you could see the writing on the wall. You're on that cusp. I think the New York Rangers are delusional at this point for still staying in with an older roster. Shake that on up. And that's probably going to happen next season. I think they're looking, saying, oh, we're just on the outside. You are not going to touch Florida or Tampa. Not a chance. They are going to crush you. Yep. Not a chance. So, if I was a fan of the Bruins, again, you heard me say this earlier this year on a podcast. I didn't like the direction the team was going at the beginning of the year with some of the stuff in the offseason. It just adds toxicity into the locker room. And now you're losing your captain and your beloved player, right? Which, by the way, Maria, you haven't seen this yet. And this is how much this game meant to us. Look.
I can't see what he's showing me.
I can't see either. It froze. Oh, no.
Oh, he's frozen. Crap. Oh gosh, he's
his Marchand jersey that he got from Four Nations.
Oh crap.
I found it in the mail.
Crap.
Well, as a Habs fan, trust me, after that game, and I'll be honest, there was other players I was looking for, but they all sold out. And Marchand, between Marchand and a couple other players, I'm like, nah, I'm buying it, because that's how much that game meant to all of us over here, right? But back to your, sorry, I'm dominating some talk time here. You guys got a really tough schedule for the rest of March. That's a tough schedule. And this is what they looked at when they were doing these deals, going, we're not going to win some of these games. It's not going to happen.
No.
And then, like you said, last night was sort of the summing up of the season, right? A broken stick that results in the game-winning goal. So for me with Montreal, I knew we would stay the way we were if we went on another winning streak. And actually, Nick Suzuki talked to Hughes and said, what do we need to do to keep everybody in his locker room? And this was just after the break. And they said, win games. Well, the boys went double fists up, middle fingers up, saying, we're going to go win hockey games because we want to keep the locker room together now. So it's going to be interesting because, looking at the Middlestat trade, that's the one that confused me, right? Because Middlestat was on Buffalo, never living up to potential, gets traded over to Colorado, does okay for a bit, but then he plateaus. And I knew Charlie Coyle was like that in Minnesota, right? He just wasn't living up to potential, but son of a bitch, did he ever come on when he was traded to Boston? I don't see that happening with Middlestat, but hey, maybe I could be wrong, right? He's younger, same amount of contract space, and one more year to his contract, right?
But we've seen a decline in Charlie Coyle this season. His stats are nowhere near what they had been previously with his early time with the Bruins. And I had been saying, and I don't know if I sounded like a real fan or not a real fan, but I had been saying for quite some time that I wanted Sweeney to identify who the core of this roster would be moving forward, identify those players and build around them. And if that meant parting ways with, and I think I even said it on our pod, that, Don Sweeney would not be doing his due diligence as a general manager if he didn't listen to inquiries on anybody on this roster not named Pasta, Swayman. I had even thrown Marchand in there, and my caveat player was Charlie McAvoy, because I've had some thoughts about him over the course of this season too, because I'm developing a bit of frustration at his game this season as well. I never in my wildest dreams thought that the Bruins would trade Brad Marchand, but it's been done before. The Rangers did it this season. They traded their captain, Jacob Trouba, and it, might have sent some shockwaves through the Rangers locker room initially. I think that's part of why they had a bit of a slide and some unsettledness as a result of having their captain traded. But I guess business is business.
Yeah.
I don't know how else to put it.
Well, I don't mind, because it used to be the approach. Like, we're seeing a complete shift. I was actually going to do a podcast on the shifting of how general managers are managing their hockey teams, right? We've never seen before a guy thrown on waivers just because he was refusing to move his no trade clause, right? And the Rangers did that. We're seeing all these bigger trades starting to happen earlier on so that it can make an impact, and kudos to Colorado. The Nature's trade was genius for them. They have the money for a player and he's fitting in perfectly. And now he'll have a really good rhythm with that team going into the playoffs. So it's interesting to see how this shifts.
I just want to jump in super quick because I know we got a couple of other guests hopping on. So I want to say hey to Brad.
Hey Brad, welcome. Thank you for accepting our invitation.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited to be on. Thanks for having me.
Thanks.
Yeah, well, we're not totally excited. I guess we should be excited because we're going to be building towards a new era and a new future.
Welcome.
It's hockey, but
apparently,
Jesus Christ.
move over the rest of our division, because we have just signaled to the entire league that we basically are taking a page out of Montreal's book, out of Detroit's book, out of Ottawa's book. But before we jump into some of our divisional rival talk, because that's what we want to hear from you, Brad. Mary Beth has been sitting here waiting patiently. I want to hear, as a regular game attendee, I think you said recently you've gone to all your games, right?
No, I still have. I've got one more. Not for a couple of weeks though. Not until April.
All right. So we need to know, how big is the sign going to be that completely eviscerates Don Sweeney that you're going to be bringing to the Garden?
Oh God, this is really, and I know there was all this rumor and all this talk that this might actually happen. And I think most of us had in the back of our mind, maybe, but I really think we were all leaning towards probably not going to happen. Probably not going to happen. We hit 3:00, nothing. And it wasn't that Marchand's going here. There's talk he's going here. There's talk he's going there. There wasn't anything specific. So I think most of us kind of dismissed it as rumors, as clickbait, as all of these things. To hear that he went to Florida is, I think, the thing. If he had gone, let's say the Oilers or the Avalanche or the Stars or whatever.
Yeah, if he'd gone west.
We would have been sad. But somewhere out west, we would have been sad and said, oh, that's too bad, but okay. But this is adding insult to injury.
Read the room, Don. Read the room.
And then on the heels of that, to hear Carlo went to the Leafs, this is not what you do. And there's a whole commercial about don't date in the division.
Right. No. But it used to be in the day that GMs were very hesitant about trading within division,
especially
because
goalies
it can come back to bite you in the ass. But in this instance, if these teams that you're trading these players to are valuing your players and they're giving you something of value in return, I think if we had heard after the fact that, okay, offers were made for this player and here's what was being offered and he didn't take it because he didn't want to trade him within the division, then I'd say, you know what, Donnie, you need to be fired. Right. You need to be fired.
Well, and I think that that's part of this whole conversation right now is we don't know what the return is on Marchand.
Right. Right.
So we know he's going there, and obviously we're nobody's going to be happy about that. I'm thinking a little bit to your point, Caroline. You said, well, "How big is the sign? How am I going to finish out the season?" I mean, I get it that you need to make hay when the sun shines. We get the money that we can, we get the picks that we can, we get what we can do, but whether we're making the playoffs or we're definitely not making the playoffs now, if there was any question and anybody thinking we were on the bubble, but we still do have to play the rest of the season. Those seats are going to be empty. There is going to be,
they sure as hell are.
The other night, and there was people leaving early, which doesn't happen a lot at Bruins games. And there was booing at the end of the game, which again, doesn't happen a lot at Bruins games. We were already on the edge of riot. I cannot imagine what's going to happen the next time people are in the barn. It's
and this is exactly what I was talking about when I've been saying for weeks and weeks and weeks that if this is 100% true, that this would be the worst decision that any GM could ever possibly make, because it not only cripples the team from today until the end of April, because he is a good player and his loss in the locker room, you're talking about a physical presence on the ice that no longer exists. You're talking about the mental, like psychological toll that his being traded away will have on the team. And then it is irreparable damage to the franchise. People will be pissed. People will not want to go and spend the money. And that sucks because the Boston Bruins still have David Pastrnak, who is arguably right now one of the best players in the league because of how fast he turned his game around this season. And he has now been left with what?
With nothing. He's got nothing. We don't. And
absolutely nothing.
Leadership was not a strong suit this year anyway. Well, we've gotten rid of Carlo now, who's good in the room. We've gotten rid of Coyle, who's good in the room. And we got rid of our actual captain, who theoretically is also good in the room. So who's good? And we've got McAvoy, who is the heir apparent to the captaincy, out on injury.
I would disagree now. But that's a topic for another.
But here's where I want to offer a dissenting point to that, in that in the past, when we have seen the Bruins on the cusp of bringing back another Stanley Cup, and I'm going to go back to, those 30 seconds in 2013-14, the dreaded 2019 season, then the historical season, the common denominators in those epic fallouts and inability to close the deal or seal the deal, I would point to were Brad Marchand, Charlie Coyle. I mean, I even the beloved Patrice Bergeron, and Tuukka Rask. I have to throw because they could never finish the deal, and there's only so many opportunities you get to that point where you're so close to lifting that Stanley Cup and you see the same results each time you get there with the same core of players. So at some point, as a general manager, and I've even said it myself, I can go back and pull audio from sports talk radio where I've been so frustrated because here we are again. These guys can't effing finish what they started. Yeah. And so sometimes you have to go in a different direction? Does it hurt us as fans because we seemingly become attached to these players? Yes, it does. But it's a results-oriented business. And if you're not getting the results, then at some point in time, you have to change your business model.
Yeah.
I agree with you for the most part of that. I mean, I do think a shakeup was needed. A bunch of things need to happen. But I also think, and I said this in the Discord actually earlier in the week, you can't get rid of everyone because we still have to play hockey. And I feel like today we just got rid of everyone, but we still have to play hockey. I think that's the part that's that I'm maybe not seeing the big picture of this. Now, we all know I would be a terrible GM. I love everybody. I get attached to everybody. I think they're all
nice.
I see the good in all of my. I would be a terrible GM.
Yeah.
We can all be in agreement of that. But I do think there is something to be said for you. You do have to keep somebody in the room, and I'm not sure who we've got now to get us through the season. And maybe we're going to tank ourselves. Maybe we'll do well in the draft, but that's not going to help us for the rest of this season. And again, this season we know white flag,
Right.
but it's also not going to help us starting next season. And I think as you're rebuilding, you can't rebuild with all kids, and that's kind of who we're stuck with at this point. So,
well, Buffalo tried that, right? Buffalo is trying to
that.
rebuild the kids. I mean, all the kids aren't working out. That's one of the reasons they re-signed Zucker to a 2-year deal, is because he's an old guy and they have a hard time keeping people. So they're like, hey, he's willing to stay in Buffalo. Great. That's desirable that you get a guy that is wanting to be there and wanting to sign there. And that's just, I mean, of course, Boston doesn't have an issue of bringing people. Again, we've talked about it, Marie, where it's like, hey, it's like for original 6 team, and you guys have been good for so long too. So like, I'm more worried about your guys' mental health, but personally, I'm okay seeing Boston fall a little bit, being that the Red Wings have been out of the playoffs for the 4th longest drought, I think, or maybe it was 4th longest or maybe 2nd longest drought besides Buffalo. So I think that Buffalo has been seeing this slow decline. I just haven't seen them. I mean, they've tried making big swings, bringing up Lindholm. They tried, Zadorov as well. They tried bringing him in, but to me, it just felt like you were head above water, but you weren't swimming. So that's my outside opinion.
Sorry about that. We just had like a major power surge here.
Oh my!
So, but speaking to the Buffalo Sabres, like they seem to be the franchise that's always the outlier. Like I'm a good friends with a Buffalo Sabres fan, and essentially what he said is they need to get rid of the owners. Got to step back like they did with the Buffalo Bills and let hockey people take over. Because they're in a perpetual rebuild that's never ending. And the only thing that ever saves them is a world-class goalie, which they don't have right now. But speaking to the young guys playing, there is something to it though. And again, being a Habs fan, I've lived through 3 years of this, dumped off a lot of older bodies, kept a few in. What you're going to see and what you hope to see on your roster right now are these young guys playing to piss everybody off and to upset teams and to make a name for themselves. So they're going to want to see who's going to rise on up here and still perform when your team just got gutted, right? Who's going to step up and who is going to perform? And the next thing is I'm anxious to see who's been traded here, because where the hell are the Florida Panthers getting the cap room from this, other than is Brady or is Kachuk, doesn't matter which one it is. Is he just going to
Matt's LTIR money? They've got Matt's LTIR money to play around with.
Yeah, so that's what I mean. So is Matthew going to stay? Is Matthew going to be magically cured game 1 of the playoffs?
Of course he is. Of course he is.
I wouldn't be surprised if they do the same for Marchand.
Yeah,
Marchand is also week to week.
Yeah.
So if they get him, they could very well put him on LTIR. It wouldn't surprise me that he wasn't put on LTIR right away after the announcement of him being week to week because of the trade deadline.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I'm just over the whole LTIR garbage. Like, I don't care if you're on LTIR and you cannot play the last 5 games of the season. You missed the first round of the playoffs. You're out.
But this came up. This is a general manager thing. This isn't it. The GMs and teams are just using a loophole that is there. The general managers, when Vegas pulled this initially. They did it 2
No,
years in a
Tampa
row.
Bay was the first.
Oh, Tampa Bay,
Kucherov.
I'm sorry.
He missed
Then
the whole
Vegas followed
year.
suit. They
Nope.
had the opportunity to make a change during their summer meetings, and they
Yep.
chose not to do so.
Yep.
So you know what? I'm all for it. Just do as the rest of the league does. When in Rome, do as the Romans do.
If you're not, if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying.
You ain't
You know?
trying,
Right.
You ain't trying,
And it's
dude.
not even cheating because it says
You're
you
right.
can do this.
Right.
Yeah.
It's one of those
Well,
spirit of the law versus
yeah.
letter of the law, right?
Mhm.
So the remaining games, Brad, we're playing you end of the month. You guys picked up a couple of people.
Hold on. You guys got Fraser Minton from that's a good pickup.
Did
That's
we?
a very good
Peter
pickup.
Mrazek? Yeah.
No, Fraser Minton is what you got for Brandon Carlo.
For
That's
Carlo.
a great
You're talking
pickup.
about
No.
Story.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's
Boston.
The stuff is
Boston
just
got
coming
Fraser
through
Minton.
now.
That's actually a very, very
And-
solid
and
pickup.
they're giving up a first, a prospect, and from what's being reported, there are multiple trades, and it's a complicated deal
For Marchand or for Carlo?
for
Yeah.
Carlo. I don't see anything coming through yet for the return on Marchand, and I suspect it's because this must have just come in quickly. They're likely still doing, I'm guessing,
Paperwork.
administrative paperwork
Right.
and wrapping things up before we find out what the actual return is for Brad Marchand.
Yeah, I'm just saying though, so if I'm a Bruins fan, Minton is one of the players the Leafs were saying was sort of off the table. They didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
And I'm shocked. Like that's a hell of a pickup for the Bruins. So there's some silver
and a
lining there.
first for Carlo.
Yeah.
It was a seller's market.
Well, I'm jealous. Red Wings were in
Very
on
much
Carlo. So the Red Wings were in on Carlo, and it's
Yeah.
pretty lackluster by Steve Yzerman, to be honest. But honestly, the team has lost 4 in a row. So I'm very frustrated with them. I think they were going to get knocked out in the first round anyways. But Brandon Carlo is going to be a great pickup for the Leafs. Did he even have a year left on his contract, or when does he
Two.
just this?
He had
He's got a couple.
2? Oh
Oil
man.
had 1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now I imagine they're going to be retaining on him too, right? I imagine if you're going to get these pieces, you're trading out Marchand, you're going to get a first round pick. Like I imagine there's probably some retention on this because that's what the Leafs, they don't have a lot of
Yeah.
cap space. So
Unless someone else is doing the retaining, because I know the Leafs are really up against it when
they
it
have
comes to their cap.
870. They have 876. Carlo makes 4.1. Even if you get a double retention, it would be over $1 million. So you're moving someone off the roster then in the Leafs sense. I know there was talks about them wanting to move Domi, which I think maybe I don't know if that's he makes around I think $4 million as well. He makes 3.75. So that would make the math work out for them to take a one for one at least contract wise. Then adding the first round pick in Fraser Minton would actually work out well. So, and that kind of makes sense. The fact that you're getting Carlo for, again, this season plus 2 seasons after that. I mean, the first round pick is going to cover this season, next season. And that second year is going to be Fraser Minton's going to be covering that spot. So, I mean, that's a good pickup for you guys. A good way to start your retool, I imagine, is what Boston's going to call it, because
That is not a retool. That is not a retool.
I think they're going to
This is
try.
not a
They're going to
retool.
spin
This
it.
is
Not a
a
retool.
fire sale and a
They're
full
gonna-
rebuild.
they're gonna spin it,
We
I'm telling
all
you.
those of us who have been watching these games all season long and watching the season play out, I think most of us had been in agreement in our Discord group that a retooling was needed. There was really no conversation about what is happening right now, which to me I equate as a fire sale.
Yeah. I think a retool would be the Charlie Coyle trade, and or an aggressive retool would be Charlie Coyle and Brandon Carlo. But to get rid of your 3 remaining somewhat veteran leaders, that you've effectively cleared house of anyone who has any sort of connection to the culture and the background of what Zdeno Chara had started, 15 years ago. So
this is the message. This is the message that I'm getting from Don Sweeney. Pasternak, McAvoy, Jeremy Swayman. That is our new core. That is our future. That is who we are going to be building around. That's just my my take on all of this.
And I think you're right on that. I mean, obviously that is what's happening because that's literally the only people.
You have
nobody else left, right?
but and I think we all kind of knew that going in, but I think we were looking more for the retool. So again,
yes,
you move out Coyle, maybe even Carlo, but that's a retooling, and you bring in some pieces that fit a little better now. This is a complete, throw a stick of dynamite in the pond and let the fish all pop out. Like, this is totally redoing the whole thing. It's not, I don't think we needed to blow up the whole thing completely. Maybe we did. Maybe we're going to be pleasantly surprised.
We may hear things after the fact, Mary Beth, that we have not been privy to, because, I have said from the beginning of the season that I have thought that there has been a disconnect with this team from day one. There's been a serious lack of chemistry amongst what we're seeing on the ice. I'm not professing to know what goes on in the locker room, but something has been amiss all season long, and it's perpetuated itself on the ice because the results are simply not bearing out at all this season.
It's looking like Henry Jokiharju is coming to Boston, third pairing defenseman.
He was good. He was in the Four Nations tournament, Finnish team. So
but I don't know part of what deal here, I guess.
Yeah.
It's to be determined going back the other way right now. So TBD seems to be a popular theme right now. But just going back, like, okay, so you're a Wings fan. You had to go through the same thing, right? Where so good. And then I think the problem right now is when teams are realizing we're holding on too long and your team's getting old and you can't get much back for them at that point. I think the most, like, me on an outsider, your most devastating loss was McAvoy, with that ridiculous, ailment that he has right now. Totally preventable. But that's that downward slope, right? Where you start looking, going, holy cow. And, like, look, I'm an outsider, and I'm not talking down to Bruins fans by this at all, right? Marchand's at 36, and you just got a very young Fraser Minton in. And that's a guy that the Leafs, every Leafs fan I talked to, and management was resisting trading that guy, and you just got him. Yep. So right now it's one of those things where you're going, like, shoot, my team's blowing on up. But if you can see him get out on the ice and he has that spark and you can see that potential in there, it's going to make you feel better. Because again, I love Puckpedia. I'm looking at the rosters. They still haven't updated it yet. Right. But you had some older players on that team that you had to move away from. And just going back to the off season, right? When it took you so long to sign your starting goaltender, that doesn't set the tone for the season very well. It's just backs up against the wall, right? And it's not a great way to start that on out. But I'm loving watching some of these trades that are still pouring on in here, because it's kind of funny. Shea Weber's been traded again, everybody. Big shocker.
Oh my God.
Yeah, to Chicago. I saw that.
To you, from Chicago to Utah. So he's still being shopped around.
Yeah, there you go, dude. Crazy.
So I think, and I'm gonna bring us home because there's a lot of still unknown. And there's going to be a lot more reporting, and I'm sure we're going to be having another update once the dust settles. I think I don't disagree with you, Steve. I'm sure these new players, like, that there's value there. I think as a Boston Bruins fan who has had an issue with this management, how they have managed the team, how they have handled their coaching staff, all of these things. What pisses me off and what makes it really difficult right now in the moment, full ownership, to look at these trades objectively is it feels like a massive, massive betrayal by Don Sweeney, by Cam Neely, Jacob's family, sure, whatever. Like, I feel like they're really not necessarily involved, but who knows, how much they involve themselves. But just to see them continuously screw up year after year in certain ways, mismanage things, and then to have this happen, as a Bruins fan, it feels like a massive slap in the face to trade your franchise player, regardless if it needed to happen, because we were billed a retool. So don't then, what's the expression? Don't pee on my leg and tell me it's raining. If we're going to have a rebuild, tell us, right?
Say it.
The Rangers GM or whoever it was told the fans, this is what we got to do. It's going to be a rough 2 years. Fine.
The Jacobs family would never allow that. I have been a season ticket holder for 15 years. I know how this family operates. They would never in a million years allow anyone in their organization to say something of that nature if it would risk people not continuing to maintain and keep their season tickets. Now,
they might still not, or they may
still not. No, because
their tickets, but they won't go and buy the concessions that they also sell. So, regardless, they're looking at potentially a decrease in their revenue. But don't tell me this, and then do the opposite thing. Yes, I'm irritated right now. But tell me then, why should I next season spend $1,000 to go and take a day trip out to Boston to see this team when I'm disgusted at what this management has opted to do?
Mm-hmm. Well, and you got to think about this. When you're going through rebuild, and this is what we talked about as Red Wings, you're either selling winning or you're selling hope.
Yeah.
This doesn't with I would say. And this is, again, I'm an optimistic Red Wings fan. I'm looking for the positives for me. How can I get Pasternak? That's what I'm thinking. If you guys are going to rebuild, are you going to, because that was considered when Red Wings had Larkin. Larkin is older than Moritz Seider and Lucas Raymond and Edvinsson and all the young players. He's kind of like dad in this case, right? So he's been through it. He's 28, going 29 years old, and they still might not make the playoffs. And he's seen the playoffs in his first year, and that's it, right? So, and it feels like a Jeff Skinner situation, honestly. And so you got to consider, it's like, okay, is it better to sell dad? I'm thinking dad in this case was Marchand. Was he kept that culture together, and I think he held on as long as he could. In the outside perspective is when I saw Pasternak sign for 11.5, I was like, ooh, that doesn't feel very Boston of him. Because of everyone was signing the $6.5 million per year. It was like everyone was taking the haircut because it was all the team play. And not that Pasternak is not worth it. He absolutely is. But I saw that and I was like, that doesn't feel the same. He doesn't feel like doesn't feel it right. Because that wasn't the culture that was built or that was left over. Yeah. And so that was cracks in the armor for me as an outsider.
Interesting.
So just because I was like, okay, that again, we saw everyone do this. It was like it was a rallying cry, and I said, I'm sorry for you guys, and it is tough selling your captain, but I think this is going to be the start of something huge. And like I said, I'm curious on whether Pasternak wants to go through this as his choice, right? He has the choice on whether he wants to. Again, I don't think he will stay, but I think we might see another Seth Jones situation where he sticks around for a bit, and then he's kind of like, hey, I'm kind of tired of losing, guys. That's just a realistic, because he's had one crack at Stanley Cup final, right? That was 2019. And he's gonna want another one, So, and he got his money already too. So,
well, I think there's still more to come. I know we have to wrap this up.
Well,
but
the one thing I just want to chime in here,
I'm not going to make a blanket judgment based on what's happened today. Is it
I will. It's terrible.
I know. And I'm seeing it in our Discord, but listen to me being the realist here, because usually I'm the fiery one.
I know.
I don't have any more jerseys to wear. I have no more. This is my daughter's. I can't wear this. It will be a crop top. I got nothing left.
They're very in nowadays. Crop tops are very in.
We still have a draft. we still have free agency. We still have off season. Don has draft picks now. He has some capital. Let us see what this translates into. Is the rest of this season going to suck for us in terms of watching these games? Absolutely. But in all honesty, is maybe that suckiness degree is going to go up a little bit, but let's face it, this has been a very trying year to watch this team from the drop of the puck right up until now. And so, I think we're all realistic enough to know that we could see the handwriting on the wall that this team, even if they made it into the playoffs prior to any of this happening, did any of us really think that they would make any noise? So I
have a comment.
I just wish it was in the summer.
Well,
I would have been more prepared.
Do you trust Don?
Finish the season. Just finish the season. That's all I wanted.
Well, do you trust Don? So again,
I don't even have to finish the sentence. You don't have to finish the sentence.
I was literally Googling. I'm like, okay, so who handled the 2015 draft? The three. I mean,
are you joking?
That's what I'm saying. Like, so maybe the Boston Bruin that needed to be out of the organization was Don Sweetie, Cam Neely. Why can't you trade them?
With Carlo's departure, there's officially nobody from that draft.
Not a bupkis, honey,
on the Boston Bruins.
Nothing.
Nobody. Yeah. Carlo was it.
That's a whole separate question. I think this coaching staff and scouting staff needs to be gutted as well.
Yep.
Before they get to draft day. I really, if they're going to use these draft picks, I'm not sure that I want this current scouting staff making those decisions or those recommendations to Neely and Sweeney.
I think that's fair. I think we are going to, I don't know how this is going to be spun by the current staff, but I'm guessing that we're going to have some, it's going to be spun.
They're going to spin it. I'm telling you, I can tell you. So go ahead. Sorry.
But there are going to, I bet there are going to be some things that come out about, they've been trying to negotiate with Brad and couldn't come to an agreement on it and those kinds of things. And you know what? That may very well be true. Maybe we're going to see a new culture starting. Looking at our current group, I can't imagine who's going to step into the leadership position. I think that's why I think, Caroline, you just said it. If this would have happened over the summer, if this would have been something, then it would have been sad, but it wouldn't have been a shock in the same way. We would have had a little bit more time. It came down literally to the wire. And even though, again, it was kind of rumored out there, and I think because they hadn't done the extension yet, that's really how all of this got started. But I think that's the piece that's kind of surprising, that it came down to the last minute right now, with all of these other pieces that had already moved out that felt not huge, but pretty big. Moving out Coyle, moving out Carlo, moving out Frederick earlier in the week. Those were all pretty big. So I think that this then just hit even harder. In addition to that, where you said, I was Coyle, you're like, yep, there's a good move. Frederick, yep, great moves, like some good moves happening there, some things that you felt were part of a retool. And then at the very last minute, actually 5 minutes after, we find out the whole thing's actually getting blown up.
Yeah.
But so everybody.
Well, here's where I will lose my mind. If I hear anybody reporting that Bruins management didn't engage in contract extension talks with Marchand in good faith, then I'm going to burn the house down, because this would not be the first time that duo has pulled crap like this. So. And we'll find out. We will find out, because someone will spill that tea.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what happens, though, because I said this to Caroline a month ago, that Brad Marchand does the big thing and says, I'm going to go at the trade deadline. I'm going to get you some assets. And then he re-signs with the Bruins in the summer once the season's done.
Agreed.
I know you don't like it, but it's a good way to speed up a retool, right?
But why would he do that?
Why wouldn't you want to come back to the city you've always been at? He's got a shot at a cup right now, right? So
yeah,
he's
but
got
if
a
that,
shot-
I mean, I just think that that's a pie in the sky notion or idea, because I think if you got fired from your job and like, well, we're just saving some money this fiscal year, but then we'll have you come back. I'd be like, are you kidding me? No, who would want to come back?
Right. You didn't
Who would
want me
wanna come
enough to
back?
extend
Well-
me. You didn't
well,
want me enough to extend me. Now you want me to come back again. I
Right.
would feel some
Yeah.
kind of way about
I
that.
Well,
feel kind of way
but
about it.
also, but you're looking at this though, right? Because the way I'm looking at it is this way. They're saying, hey, we've got you guys, like, look, I'll be honest, like if Montreal, Detroit make the playoffs this year, they're not winning. The teams are so good. The Bruins made the play. You guys weren't winning. It wasn't going to happen. Like these teams are so stacked right now. So if they said to Brad Marchand, look, I'm going to give you a shot at winning a cup. You're going to come back in the offseason, and then we can get more pieces to have an improved team and speed this on up. And he did it. I wouldn't be insulted by it. I would have said, thank you very much. I'm going to go for this. And if he comes back with another Stanley Cup, he's a 2-time Stanley Cup winner, and you'll probably take a hometown discount to say, okay, let's speed this thing through. It's out there. Like, who knows? Because, you know, it
True.
depends on the hockey player's perspective, right? But like, in all honesty, like, you know, I saw this. I had a feeling like you guys were being smart by doing this. I don't think the New York Rangers are still being smart. They're still chasing
Agreed.
with an old team. You got to do something. And I'm more excited. Like, I was the one that was excited going, Fraser Minton. You guys got Fraser Minton. You guys are like, F
I don't
off.
know who the hell that
Habs
is.
Oh yeah, no, he's a great pick for the. That was Fraser Minton and what was the other one? I can't think of the other one that the Toronto one. But it was like one of the ones that everyone's like, don't trade him. And then they saw what Tampa did, and they were like, screw it. Sorry, I almost swore. Screw it. Screw it. Get rid of everything. And I mean, they're starting to make big moves. I'm happy. I mean, I think you should be very happy with him. He'd be a good. I think he's a center, I believe, as well.
Yeah, he's a center. So you're getting a good young center.
Sorry to interrupt, guys, but Caroline has got to check out. So
I'm going to let Maria take us home, but I have to go to hockey practice.
Yeah.
There's going to be a lot of conversation there today.
But continue amongst yourselves. Go Bees.
I can't even join in here right now. I just can't.
Yeah, I'm sorry you have to see me living in this. I can't stand. I will say I'm jealous of Boston. I respect Boston. I respect your culture. I think you guys do a great job. You guys, I mean, I'm very envious of how you guys have built. Again, people love going to Boston, and then there's Boston players. Like, you guys have your toughness. You guys don't fail the punk test. Like, there is like a culture that I'm super jealous of that you guys build, and it's like it does look like there are remnants of that though, and that's where I'm starting.
The hope is that that culture will continue to be perpetuated by Pastrnak and McAvoy, and whatever other players that management identifies that can help them with that culture. Like, I mean, Pasta and McAvoy spent a lot of time around Zdeno Chara and Patrice Bergeron and David Krejci and Brad Marchand. And let's not forget that, Zdeno Chara is going to have some type of role with the Bruins organization. And I wouldn't be at all surprised if perhaps part of that role doesn't turn into, some type of liaisoning or, working with these younger players, or at least the defensive core, to not only help them with their play and their skill set, but also how to be a leader, how to be a good leader, how to help grow and cultivate a culture that he established when he joined the Bruins as a free agent way back in, what was it, 2006-7 or 2007-8? I can't even remember, but it was that far back. So, I still think that there is reason to be optimistic. Cautiously optimistic, I guess, is the more appropriate way to put it.
Mhm.
This is a whole new side of you, Maria.
I liked when she was all fired up. That was awesome. I was like, she's like, people are leaving, they're not buying the concessions. I was like, I'm all, this is great. I love the energy. That's the Boston
the
attitude.
drugs work
That's
wonders.
it.
No.
No. That's what we like to, that's what you have the passion that I expect out of a Boston fan. That's you guys
But I'm also realistic too. Like, yeah, do I want my team to win? Am I pissed off that they squandered away opportunities? But how many times can you take the same kick at the can or get kicked and get the same results each time? So yeah, I do I worry about missteps that Sweeney and Neely can make? Of course, because they've shown us that they have made the missteps in the past. So yeah, that's when you'll see me fired up. Like, honest to God, if I find out and I read anything that they really didn't even negotiate in good faith with Brad Marchand, you can bet that I'm going to be one pissed off Maria from Watertown.
Yeah.
Okay, so but
well, on the plus side, Pasta stepped up the last couple of months. He was leader adjacent, but the last couple of months he's been carrying this team on his back, and I've really seen, probably since January, this big change in him in becoming a leader on the ice, in carrying this team on his back, in dragging everybody with him in a way that we haven't seen before. And that does give me some hope. Now, I am, as a rule, hopeful, but today not quite as much. But I do see that there's some glimmers of that there, and maybe with these spaces opening up, we're going to see some people step into these roles, and start to lead the team in another way.
Well, you do have good, solid pieces. Like, this isn't, like, look, when I looked at Montreal, when Carey Price was deemed he was never going to play again, we were screwed.
Yeah.
Like, that was one of the worst days as a hockey fan, other than Patrick Waugh getting traded, right? You can't rebound back from that, so you're not losing Pasternak, right? Because if I was a Bruins fan and they traded Pasternak and they kept Marchand and they extended Marchand, I'd be a little bit more pissed, because Pasternak he's an elite player in this league. So you've got good pieces. And this isn't like, guys, when you do a full rebuild, man, do you ever drop a lot of players, right? You almost got almost everything. This is going to be a retool, because I'm looking at your roster, looking at cap space now, going, you still got two good goaltenders. You've got a hell of a defensive core, and you've got some good. You're going to have a good mix of, players that aren't even close to being past their prime. Like, Pasternak's hitting his prime.
Yeah.
So he's still going to be lighting it up in 4 years from now, when, I think it's 2 years, you're back in the competitive framework, when the other teams are now starting to decline. So this is actually not a bad move at this point. And that's why I'm criticizing teams. Like, let's look to the Western Conference. Edmonton's goaltenders suck. They suck, and they did nothing today. They're not going anywhere. And, they're going to have to pay McDavid an insane amount of money. And Evan Bouchard apparently wants $10 million, which he's not worth. So at least you're not stuck in that over cap situation, right? You're in a good spot with good players. There's other teams that I'm looking at too, going, oh gosh, they're done. Like, I look at the New York Rangers. They got some good young talent, but they moved away from some of that this year, and I'm shaking my head at it. And the Tampa Bay Lightning, in my opinion, they've brought in some younger pieces, but some of their best pieces are getting on that age where they're going to start getting injuries. They had to go for it this year. So the East is locked down. Like, I thought Washington was done last year, and I look like an idiot for saying that.
Everybody does, just for the record.
Yeah.
Like, I thought they were done, and they've had a resurgence. The East is going to be a terrible place in the playoffs for any team that was hanging on.
Well,
so
it already is, right? I mean,
it's this race is the most insane thing I've ever seen. I've never seen it coming to the trade deadline.
No one's bad.
Yeah.
No one's bad.
You've got 6 teams that could arguably still get into a wild card spot, and that's nuts.
Yeah.
So why did Boston bail? I'm telling you right now, when they saw McAvoy go down, they went, we're in trouble.
No,
In
and
a
it
lot of
wasn't
trouble.
just, it was a culmination, right? It started with Lindholm. We were all hoping and expecting, and we're hearing that he was getting close to coming back, right? And I think we were all cautiously optimistic and saying, okay, let's see what happens when we get Lindholm back. This is before McAvoy got hurt in the Four Nations, right? And we have our full complement of defensive cores where we can just get our defensive pairings straight once and for all and consistently for the season. But then you get the Lindholm news, the McAvoy injury. Then you've got the Marchand injury. You've got virtually you were getting nothing. Let's just face facts. You were getting nothing much from Charlie Coyle. You weren't getting anything from your third line. You had a fourth line that was the best line in hockey to start the season, but because you couldn't get other guys going, you're moving guys from this line to that line and this line to that line. So at some point you have to say to yourself, we're just not going to be able to get this done this year. Between the injuries and between a lack of production, which we could see coming from a mile away, because if David Pastrnak and Morgan Geekie and Pavel Zacha weren't involved in scoring since the close of the Four Nations tournament, this team would have likely been out of the playoffs a couple of weeks ago.
Yep. So, like I said, guys, it's nuts. I've been there. You guys will survive, and you're surviving with good pieces, though. That's the thing is, again, the ones that are going, it always stings when you see that. Like, what's really going to depend on right now is who is coming back in this Marchand trade. Like, this TBD is driving me nuts because I want to see that, because then you could speak to it. Because let's just say, for some reason you ended up getting, oh gosh, what is his name? Sam Bennett back.
Oh, I mean, pissed. What a Boston player, by the way. Like, what?
Yeah, but that's what I mean. Like if you got a younger, gritty, he's a pain in the ass to play against, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if that was the piece coming back to Boston, I'm looking at that going, well, I'm okay with that. And then that again accelerates that rebuild. So part of it's pending on that right now. But again, I'm still losing my mind for you guys over Fraser Mitten. I didn't think that was going to happen. If you got Easton Cohen, I would have been like, well, okay. He was kind of sucky at the World Juniors. I didn't love his game, but I would have been like, that's okay. But I'm really high on Mitten's game for you. So
yeah, he's in WHL. He was a point per game. He played a couple of games in the A and the NHL. He's got a half point per game in the AHL. So I mean, I think that it's a great pickup for a second round pick too. I think he's going to be a great little center. Probably pans out as as probably like a good 3C. I think. I mean, maybe
we just got rid of our 3C, so
yeah. Well, yeah. The thing is, he's not.
We got rid of our 2C as well, so
he is 6'2" as well. So it's like he's not yeah.
Like, you have to laugh at this point. I don't know what the hell else you can do at this point. And we were struggling watching these games to begin with. This is going to be a real slog fest to finish out the season, but hopefully we'll have reason to be excited during the off season and for the season to come. Now I'm just scrolling through my phone, and this better not be it, but I'm seeing that for Marchand, the Bruins received a second, which will be a conditional first round pick. This can't be it.
No,
because if that's it, then it's malpractice on the part.
Well, if that's it, I'm going back to what I had said earlier to you guys, that the plan is he's not re-signing. He's going to come back, and they did that just to get an asset. Because if that's all you're getting for Brad Marchand right now, then that means there's no long-term plan for him in Florida. So, and who else would he go play for? Right? I don't see him moving across to be with the Colorado Avalanche. I sure as shit don't see him playing for the Vegas Golden Knights.
No,
Not a chance, right?
no,
So
that rumor was going around earlier.
That was going, and I thought,
before the
isn't that
deadline.
weird? He's part of what got Bruce Cassidy fired to begin with. So
He's not going to Vegas. That is for
Yeah.
sure.
he's
but
not
that's
going
just
to
what
Vegas.
that's what I'm saying. So if that's what it is, then that's what I think's happening. He's going to be a true rental, and he's coming back to your squad, and then he's coming back to your squad, adding a pick, to it, and again, you've got a young center that's going to be joining on in, and you would legitimately in the offseason, if you can, shift a few of your pieces, you could be competitive again as early as the start of next season. So it's just now you have again, trying to stay positive because you have a tough schedule again, coming on up when you drop some players, but this is where you really want to see who is going to fight and who's going to push through on this. And I would love to watch Boston now be the spoilers for a bunch of other teams knocking them out of a playoff spot.
Well, and I don't know who mentioned it earlier, and we can get this wrapped up here. That to some degree, the rest of these games will be in essence a tryout for these younger players who, for whatever reason, didn't take advantage of opportunities that were provided to them during preseason, right? Because we were expecting some players to break out because there were a number of spots that were open and available to these players, and let's see if they put the pedal to the metal with these remaining games and show us that they're NHL material.
Be careful what you wish for, because I said that maybe a week or two ago. I said, you know what? Let's just call it a season. Let's bring up these young guys. Let's give them some NHL experience. Now, I wasn't serious about getting rid of everyone.
Then you should have clarified that. That's what you get.
It's honestly, it's all your fault. It's all your fault.
It's all your fault, Mary Beth. That's it.
I spoke it into existence.
She's been the sacrifice on more than one occasion this season anyway, so she's accustomed to it.
So just one last thing for Maria, it is back to this, right? So if you get Marchand back next summer, right? If we're looking here in the offseason, you get Marchand back and you add a few pieces back in here, and all of a sudden you're looking competitive again, right? You're like, okay, this is a good roster. We've got a shot. Then how, I'm looking forward to that conversation with you guys, because we got nothing better to do in the summer than have that, right?
We can certainly have it, of course. Yeah.
Yeah. But that's this is sort of what I'm looking at right here going, I think you guys are going to go back and look at this and saying, okay, it was worth it. This is going to be worth it. We've got a better team and a better outlook going forward than hanging on one more year with these guys. Because if you didn't do anything during this trade deadline, if you did nothing at all right now, how would you have felt? If you just sat back with your roster,
you'd feel like the Detroit Red Wings.
I would be aggravated because I expected some retooling. I did expect either a Charlie Coyle or a Morgan Geekie to be potentially moved off this roster. And I think I said it on one of our last podcasts that if I had to choose between the two, I would keep more. Well, actually, was it Trent that I was comparing him to? Maybe it was Trent Frederick. I said, I'm keeping Morgan Geekie because if David Pastrnak is happy with him, I'm happy with him. Yeah. Okay.
And he's an RFA.
Yeah.
So go ahead. Finish. I interrupted.
I forgot where I was going with it.
That's on me.
Shit. No. It's called CRS. Can't remember.
You were talking about maybe moving, whether you were going to move out Geekie or who you would keep Geekie. Because
I anticipated and expected a retool. I didn't expect any of this, and I think people would be lying if they said that they expected. And you know what? I did think that there was a potential for Brandon Carlo to be moved because we did player profiles, and I was of the opinion that, again, if I'm looking down at the roster and I have to make decisions about who stays and who goes, to me at this point, based on what we were seeing this season, I had said I would keep Mason Lohrei because I could swap those players out, Mason Lohrei over Brandon Carlo.
Yes.
And if they could move on from Brandon Carlo and get something in return for him, something of, I know it wouldn't be something of significant value, but he has value. He's been a good defenseman. Last year, he was by far the Bruins' best defenseman. It hasn't translated this season, but it hasn't translated for a lot of players this season. But so, again, I'm not shocked by that. The Brad Marchand thing and Brandon Carlo and Charlie Coyle and Trent Frederick, I think, is a lot to absorb as a fan today.
No arguing that point whatsoever. But, speaking to Brad on this one right now, though, your team's doing what my team is doing, giving you a glimmer of hope in a pretty hopeless situation, right?
Yeah.
So, I'm fine that the Canadians didn't do a damn thing, because right now they're looking at Savard saying, if he's going to re-sign with us next year, he was re-signing because we got a lot of good young defensemen coming up. He's going to take a hometown deal to stay. So then we can stay fine. And I have a feeling that also with Yoel or Mia, they're doing the same thing. Like, look, stick around. We're having a good time. We'll sign you to 2 years, maybe 1.5 million. We'll have you hang out. We'll still be competitive. And it's a movable contract, right? Mm-hmm. So in your case, with Detroit not doing anything, do you think it was, we've got enough good pieces in place right now, we're doing all right, and we're not going to beat Tampa or the Panthers, right? How are you feeling at this moment?
So I'm feeling that because of, first off, we did a coaching change. So that's something we talked about earlier in the season. So we did a coaching change and we had a bad start. And then now they're on a pretty good start with McClellan and everything. So my issue is that you're now, based on December 17th or December 27th, they were at one point that they had the most wins of any team, or the most points of any team, besides like Washington and the Jets. It was a crazy run. And so to me, by not doing anything, and there was they tried to go for Carlo. There's talks about them going for Carlo. Toronto beat him out. Clearly, I don't know if I would have paid that price for Carlo, knowing the Red Wings and on the upswing. But to me, I'm a little upset that there wasn't even like some smaller moves. I mean, they picked up Craig Smith and Mrazek. I'm like, great. So now they have three mid goaltenders. Talbot's been pretty good though. They moved up Veleno, who he wasn't really working out anyway, so I'm okay with that one. And then you get Craig Smith, who fills in as like a 3-4C, probably more like a 4C, because they lost Andrew Kopp this season. So it's kind of one of those, you lose Andrew Kopp, who's he fits better as a 3C. I wish they would have swung a little harder for something. I know there's a lot of Dylan Cousins rumors as well, which is crazy that he went to Ottawa. But to me, the prices for a Dylan Cousins, we kind of have a Dylan Cousins already in our system coming up that they drafted Nate Danielson in 2023. So it was kind of one of those, do we get Dylan Cousins now, or do we just wait till next year and get the start of a Dylan Cousins? So I wish there was something, I guess. I wanted a little bit of like, hey, we believe in you. Hey, we're in the right direction. Hey, like a little bit, even if it was like I wanted Luke Cunnin. He went for a 4th round pick. I'm like, that's an easy one. That's an easy trade, right? Like there's little pieces that you could have helped bring the guys together a little bit more and show, hey, I have confidence in you guys. I want you guys to succeed. It feels like the moves that Yzerman didn't do, or didn't even, it seems like there wasn't enough moves to say, I actually want you guys to succeed. It feels like it was just going back to because he talked about this. He had a press conference when he did the coaching change. He said, the goal is to be in the fight for the wild card spot. And they still are. But to me, it's like saying it, and then there's also like making the moves toward saying and gesturing towards it. They called up a rookie yesterday because they were like, hey, we're gonna try and spark this team. They're on a 3-game losing streak. And then he gets hurt in the first period. So you're like, well, like it'd be great to have some support, bring in some veteran guys. Like they lose Perron in the offseason. They trade the Jake Wallman trade. I can't effing believe that one. That's like in that Edmonton's had a 1st round pick for Jake Wallman. I'm still, it's toxic in the Red Wings fan base, that one. But again, so that's kind of where we're like, they're on a 4-game skid. The Jake Wallman thing happens. They lose their second line center. So so the fact that nothing really happened besides picking up Mrazek, who they used to have, and Craig Smith, I'm like, what a whimper. I'm pretty disappointed that something more didn't happen. So,
But we can criticize our GMs all we want, right? Because all we want our GMs to do is go out and get the best players, right? We all want the best players on our team, or those players that we think are going to bring us to the promised land. But that is not a realistic approach to, trade deadlines, and, they all talk to each other and they all hear things, right? And so, your GM could be hearing like, okay, this is what it's going to take to get this guy, say any guy. It's like, and if he's doing his due diligence and looking at the current team and looking at the future, he's not going to risk making a move that could blow up or derail any plans that they have in the future, just because you want your team to get into the wild card playoffs, right? Because, a 7 or an 8 seed, it doesn't happen very often. It can happen in the NHL, but realistically, is a 7 or 8 seed really going to make it to the Stanley Cup Finals? Like, there's something to be said for getting that playoff experience. But if you're looking at a bigger picture situation, then sometimes, a little bit of kind of, let me sit back and see how this all plays out. If this team is going in and doing this, and let's see how that plays out for them before I go out and start giving things away that I think I need that will help for the future of this team. I don't know if that makes any sense, but I think we're all really quick to want to criticize our GMs, and God knows I've been doing it for freaking years, right? I've been doing it for years.
Yeah.
Ron Sweeney actually called me out on the radio one day. So
jealous. Well, I mean, but I'm looking at the trades, like something like simple, like something I was willing. I don't want to trade a first or second. Like that's kind of where I'm at. I'm like, even with how high the prices were, but I'm like, Rangers traded for Carson Soucy for a 3rd round pick. It's San Jose, so it's basically a second, right? But like, you couldn't finagle a 3rd and a 4th there, right? Like a Luke Cunningham went for a 4th. Like I don't need big swings. I just wanted like a little something, like a Nico Stern went for a 4th round pick. Like, I'm just like I just wanted a little bit of like, hey, I do have confidence in you. And I'm just like, I'm feeling a little stale. I'm feeling a little bitter right now. And so that's my opinion. Again, we're on that swing.
And we've been there as Bruins fans. Talk to me when you're sitting at a game at the TD Garden and you're all excited because you hear Jerome McGinless coming to your team, and then the next thing you know, he's like, yeah, hell no, I'm not going there. I'm going to play with Sidney Crosby. Okay.
Yeah.
Which, let's face it, we all would.
Yeah. Well, and mind you, let's look at the room today. We're looking at a Bruins fans, original 6, got quite a few Stanley Cups. Red Wings got a few Stanley Cups. Canadians, we can all hate the Canadians here. No. But no, they have a phenomenal, but we're all up, and we're going in different directions, right? Canadians and Red Wings are on the up, which is nice. It's exciting. And Bruins are kind of they're starting to start their, I believe they're going to spin as a rebuild. Retool. I think it's going to be spun as a retool, and they're going to say, no, we're going to take the 1st round picks. We're going to try and flip them for players, because you made a signings this summer of Lindholm for 7 years. Zadorov was it 5 or 6 years, right? Like, so you have McAvoy on a long contract.
Big signings.
You have McAvoy on a long contract. You have Lindholm on the other Lindholm on a long contract, right? You have David Pastrnak. So there's a lot. There are still good top pieces here. Your forward core is. I mean, you picked up Casey Middlestad, which is a piece, right? He's probably your new second line center. He's a piece. He's I don't know. Is it him or Lindholm as your second line center? I don't know.
That was a lateral move at best, but
yeah, right. Well, I mean, yeah. So that's where I'm kind of like, okay, there's still some good pieces here. I think you can kind of Rangers it and retool. You better not get a 1st overall pick. I will be furious if you guys do, like the Rangers did. But again, I think there's a lot of good pieces you have. I mean, I'm not mad. I think it's going to be tough next year for sure. But I think you can trade these 1st round picks for players, and there's absolutely.
I think next year will be tough, but I think in this case we're going to be ready for it. We've been expecting it since Bergeron retired, and it hadn't happened until this year. This year,
we could argue that maybe it should have started sooner, but then they had that historical run.
We've been doing, I mean, we've just been having these years. What I'm going to be interested to see for all three of our teams, for us, this was a different kind of trade deadline. The last couple years, we've been putting in pieces to get into the playoffs. We had delusions of cup contending and all of these things.
Right.
This is the first year that we've been sellers in a really long time.
It's been a decade. It has been a decade.
So I think that this is different, but I think looking at the Red Wings, looking at the Canadiens, looking at the Bruins, I'm going to be interested to see what happens because it was such a seller's market today for the trade deadline. What's going to happen in the off season? How's that going to translate to how many of these pieces are going to stick? How many of these people are going to end up signing contracts, extending contracts? And how are things going to move around in the offseason based on this, unquestionably huge seller's market in this trade deadline? This was the biggest seller's market I can remember in the last several years by a long shot. And there were some big, I mean, obviously, I think the Marchand is the one that everybody's going to talk about. But there were some fairly significant pieces put in places. You might say Trent Frederick from us, not a huge trade, but he is just what the Oilers need. They needed that mid guy to balance out their top talent. There was trades like that happen and moves like that happen that are filling in some significant places for other teams that I'm going to be interested to see how it all plays out over the summer. So,
and you're right, because there was a lot of movement and you can't keep all these people. There's going to be a lot of big free agent things and teams are going to have to shed salary cap. It's going up, reportedly, I don't know if it's 3 to 5 million again this year, but it's not enough to keep all of these players. So the teams that sat back really realized they didn't have a shot this year a realistic shot to go deep. So why go deep this year when next year you can have an improved roster and possibly have a better shot when these other teams won't be as good? There's no way Marchand's re-signing with the Panthers unless they get rid of a big piece, right?
I couldn't imagine he was going there. So
yeah.
Well,
so
I imagine the conditions on that first round pick.
Don't underestimate the influence that Sean Thornton could have over that, because Brad Marchand was a part of that 2011 Stanley Cup team that Sean Thornton was on as well. And so without Sean Thornton and that fourth line and that toughness, I would argue that the Bruins would have had a difficult time beating the Vancouver Canucks. And I think there's still, there's still a lot of respect there. And I'm wondering if, that might not come into play. Just a little aside.
Yeah, it's just cap space. Like, who are you going to give up, right? It's who do you see as your future on your team? And like I said, if their big offseason piece is going to be signing Sam Bennett. That's going to be a big thing for Florida. Do they really want to let him go, right? And if they let him go, then Marchand could be the next person that signs there, right? I still don't see.
Well, for all we know, we got Bennett in the trade. We still have no information.
Oh, I know. And I've been refreshing everything, trying to get something out of
all
here.
I'm seeing is a reference to this pick that is a second that could turn into a conditional first.
Well, so to me, I bet you it's something similar we saw with Carolina with the second round pick to Pittsburgh for Gensel. It was like, hey, they have to make the conference finals or they have to make the Stanley Cup finals. I mean, if you don't think Florida has a good chance of going to the Stanley Cup finals, if that's the condition, I mean, that's pretty good odds. I mean, I'll be honest. I think Florida is going to be being the one that comes out of this. I think Washington's doing really good, but I think they're the real only other competition. I mean, Tampa looks good, like really good, but Florida is just something special about them. Especially if they can get Matthew Tkachuk back, and then the Seth Jones move as well. Like, there's a lot of good moves. I mean, I still have Florida taking it in the. I have Florida in the East, and I have Dallas in the West. In my opinion, I think that's where those two teams are going to be. So I think that's kind of where I have. I think you have a good opportunity of this becoming a first round pick again if the conditions are a Stanley Cup Finals or Stanley Cup Conference or the Eastern Conference Finals. So
I'm actually, after the moves from this week, I think Colorado's stock went up this week.
Yeah, I agree with you.
And I think I was kind of leaning towards the Caps, but I don't know, a couple of moves that have happened over this, over this last week, maybe they didn't really make that any changes. So I don't know, but I think Colorado's stock went way up. I actually think the Oilers stock went up this week too. So
Yeah,
I think
no,
I agree though, Brad. I think Florida is.
It's just the goaltending for the Oilers that, like, we've watched Stuart Skinner do well and then just horrendous, and they do not have a backup. Like, I just don't get it.
Detroit legend Calvin Pickard, man. How do you not bank on that? I mean, Griffin legend. This guy is a sealed deal. I mean, come on. But no, I'm there. They did a swap for Kakinen and Drieger with the Jets, and I was like, cool. Like, but again, that's what you rely on Bob for all that. Honestly, if they lose Bob, like, you're kind of, it's the same thing. The Lightning are running the same thing. Dallas is running the same thing, where they have a guy as their backup, right? It's not a 1A 1B for sure, right? Unlike, when you guys had Allmark Swayman, which was definitely a 1A 1B. And so to me, I just see, again, they're kind of banking on that one goaltender who's putting up 60 to 65 games a year, Hellebuck as well, so I don't know. I think, again, I'm excited for your Boston trade deadline. I think it's going to be huge. I think it's going to be a ton of fun. I think Steve's right. We're going to see a ton of signings from Montreal, re-signing Armia. I mean, they might bring Savard back for another year, sign him to a year or two contract, and then flip him next year, right? Like, that could be something as well. I was surprised Red Wings didn't trade Alex Lyon. He had some good numbers that were pretty similar to Talbot at the start. And I'm surprised that someone didn't even try to pick him up for, like I said, like a third, fourth round pick, something easy, which, again, that's another one where I'm like, it's right there. Like, it's an easy one. You picked up Mrazek. It's like, you picked up a third goalie. I'm like, you could have traded something else, so that's my frustrations. So anyway.
Well, I will tell you, Steve and Brad, you've made me feel a little bit better about this day.
This has been very therapeutic and good conversation for us on a day where we like, I think we're still kind of in a state of shock in order to, like, process all of this. Like, maybe when I wake up tomorrow morning, I might be like, cracking a hockey stick over my knee in two, but
well, I can see where your shock is. 2 years ago, you were on the cusp of making it to the Cup finals. You were there. And then last year's playoffs, to be honest, like, it's nice when you don't have a team in the playoffs because you can sit back and enjoy it. There's no stress. Like, I've been watching the playoffs now for 4 years, kind of relaxed. And last year you guys just didn't have it. Like, it just, the gelling wasn't there. Right. So to me, and when I looked at that, I went, okay, they've really got to do a lot more in the off season to really push up and be competitive. But, like I said, you're in a great position going forward. You're going to have cap space to make a good run at this. And, like, when you look back next year, you've already got Swayman locked up. So all that BS history is gone. And now you just have to add your pieces. I think you're in a great spot. The team that I would not want to be sitting in right now is the Toronto Maple Leafs, because you've now got to re-sign another guy that's demanding a lot of money. And they're going to be another version of the Edmonton Oilers here soon.
Two guys, because they're looking to bring Tavares back for, like, I think it was either $6 or $7 million for 3 years, which is, like, that's expensive, right? And then you're also looking, because then they have Scott Lawton. I'm like, okay, so who's your 2C? Is it Tavares or is it Scott Lawton? I think Scott Lawton's a great 3C. And then Marner he'll probably either he's probably going to want like 15, 16 million for 8 years, or he maybe comes back at like a $13 million for 3-4 years, kind of similar to what Matthews does. So I think Toronto's in a tough spot, but again, they could have the same revelation that the Bruins, you guys as Bruins fans are having, where it's like, well, if we let both of them go, it sucks. But then they have 18 million, where they all have $22 million in cap space. So that could be, I guess they can't sign Rantanen now, so never mind. Never mind. Yeah, I also feel bad for the Toronto. Actually, no, I don't feel bad for Toronto Maple Leafs fans. I apologize. I forgot my audience.
Yeah, no. Brandon Carlo's dead to me now that he's pulled that Leafs jersey on over his head.
But can you imagine how he's feeling though, right? Because I've seen those trades happen before, like Thomas Plekanec going over to the Toronto Maple Leafs, and I went, oh God.
Yeah.
just watching him do that, it feels wrong, right? So, but I'd still having a hard time processing Brad Marchand putting on a Florida Panthers jersey.
I just saw
it's going to be tough to see. You always feel there's players that it's tough to see them put on another sweater, but there's some that just hurt.
Mm-hmm.
And this is going to be one of those.
Bobby Orr in a Chicago Blackhawks jersey.
Oof.
Should have never all that
happened.
is right in the hockey world should have never happened. And I said it the other day, I would go and find Alan Eagleson's grave and stomp on it for what he did to Robert Gordon Orr.
I love that energy.
I second that for what he did to embezzling money out of Team Canada too. So hey, we'll make both me and you'll head on over there. We'll stomp, we'll pee, we'll poop, we'll do whatever we need to do.
He was such a greedy mofo, and he never even told Orr that the Bruins had offered him an ownership interest in the organization.
That's the Ross deal. I mean, like I mean, that alone is crazy. I think about that with also John Klingberg, who got offered a $7 million deal, and now look at him, like getting 1-year deals and making like $1.5 million. I'm like, that guy missed out on almost $50 million because his agent told him to say no to a 7x7. And I'm like, just bad advice from bad people. Well, I don't know if they're bad people. Not great advice. I think yeah, the agent, Bobby Orr's guy, yeah, he's a bad person. I guess let's piss on his grave. I'm down. Let's go. I'll sign the petition.
All right, folks. I too need to actually get back to my day job because my Teams chat is blowing up here. So I'm trying to like multitask while I'm talking about hockey. But we should all reconvene at some point during the off season when we see what each of our teams does or doesn't do, either with these draft picks or, other hockey trades that could potentially happen in the off season, and maybe commiserate together. Hopefully it won't be misery together.
Fair. Well, Maria, where can we find you on social medias?
So I am on X. My handle is on the screen there. I'm at Maria of H2O Town. We also have a show account at Bruins Tape to Tape on X, so you can hit us up on either accounts.
And then Steve and Mary Beth.
You can find me everywhere at MB Skis.
I just followed you actually. I followed you on Twitter, so yeah, check out. So
yeah, Brad, I'll shoot you. I see your handle. I'll shoot you all my different handles. We recently pulled away from the Hockey Podcast Network. So when I'm getting my podcast running, back up off the ground, trying to get more players to be talking about the game because I love talking with tendies. We're a strange bunch.
I was a lacrosse goalie, if it makes you feel any better. So I got a little. I mean, that's,
it's still crazy because that thing
it's around hockey.
It doesn't matter. Like I've got a daughter that's playing soccer net, and she's even dumber than I was because you got a ball flying at you and you have goggles and mitts.
Yeah,
that's her protection. So it hurts. So yeah, we're a special breed of stupid as goalies. So I'll shoot you over the contact details afterwards. And then I'm actually, I've been watching games. I'm looking forward to seeing these young guys and how they do for the Bruins. I'm looking forward to that Senators game coming on up. Well, and Marchand how bad was his injury, everybody? Sorry, Maria, that I'm keeping this going for
week to week, which leads me to believe that it's likely a little bit, usually day to day. Maybe I'm crazy, is a little bit more optimistic than week to week.
It would be beautiful if he was playing Florida and on the 11th, but that may not be happening.
March or April?
I've got it on March right now. March 11th. Yeah, he may not be ready. Yeah.
I mean, unless there's been some exaggeration of the extent of the injury, but I would find it shocking and surprising if he's ready to go by then.
Well, let's look forward to it. Let's get back together. I'd love that. It'd be a great time. Maybe I know
we'll do it.
I think
if not sooner than that, sooner than that. But
I think March 29th is when the Red Wings play the Boston. So maybe we'll do like a live stream where you guys can jump in on there. And then Canadians, I don't know when we play them next, but yeah, you can check me out at Undrafted Hockey Fan. I'm on TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter, and YouTube as well. So definitely go check out all of our socials. And
thank you for everyone who joined us live. Thank you for all those who interacted with their comments and their takes on what has been somewhat of a historical day in Bruins Nation here. Please consider following our show, Bruins Tape to Tape. We are on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts. We appreciate the listen. We appreciate a subscribe.
And Maria just faded out, but like and follow in all the places.
Yes, yep.
Tape.
We'll catch you in the next one. Yeah, yep. I'll check us all out. Appreciate it.
We get around these days.
Yeah.
Well, thank you all. Let's all enjoy the weekend. Let's all hope we see some good hockey this weekend from all of our respective teams.
Absolutely. Well, I'll catch you guys on the next one. All right. Appreciate it. Thanks for inviting me on.
Anytime, Brad. Good to see you, Steve.
Thanks. Have a great one, everybody.
You too.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.